Hello everybody, welcome back to this new episode of D&D Creature Feature. This is the show where I read you a D&D based creepypasta, and at the end of the video I give you whatever horror was in the creepypasta, most of the time a monster, for absolutely free. But before we can begin the story, I need to introduce you guys to these two nice goobers that you see on screen right now. Their names are Edgar and Valorie. They're a pair of adopted siblings. Edgar is a chthonic tiefling, College of Spirits bard, and Valorie is a infernal tiefling, College of Lore bard. Anyways, let's get into this scary story. Ooh. Cannibal game. It was a sad, somber evening, and I was leaned against a barrel of ale in the back of the wagon, getting some rest and listening to the ambient noises of the woodlands surrounding us. Me and Valorie were traveling through a large oak forest on an old wooden horse carriage. Our goal was to deliver a bunch of wares, trinkets, and resources that we collected during our latest escapade to our home village. But unfortunately, traveling on a horse wagon isn't particularly fast. Ed, I'm getting tired. Could you steer the wagon for a bit? Val asked me. Sure. Get some rest, sis. I shrugged, getting up from my resting position. Thanks, Ed. You really are a sweetheart. Val yawned, lying down at the exact same spot that I was previously at. I sat down in the front of the wooden construct, tightly gripping the leashes tethered to the horse pulling it. For a while, it was very uneventful. I just conducted the vehicle while watching the sun slowly set. Eventually, my surroundings were pitch black, and I was also growing increasingly tired. And so I closed my eyes for a second, letting out a yawn, but soon I looked on the road again, and my eyes widened. I tried to stop the horse, but the animal just ended up losing control. The carriage began to shake, and Val snapped awake. Ed, what the nine hells is happening here? She shouted in confusion. Not long after, the wagon toppled over, and what happened right afterwards was a bit fuzzy in my memory. Val and I awoke in the middle of the woods, the open road, nowhere in sight. Huh? What happened? My sister asked, holding her hand against her forehead. There was someone standing in the middle of the road. They didn't move a muscle, and the horse just started to freak out when it saw them. I explained everything I remembered from the incident. Did you see what the person looked like? Who in their right mind would just stand in front of a moving carriage? Val interrogated me. I couldn't quite make out the details. I presume they were a tiefling because I saw a pair of horns on them, but I don't know for sure. And I presume they were female? I elaborated. But that's besides the point. We are at some random spot in the middle of the forest, and the wagon and the horse are who knows where. We don't know how to get back to the road in our home village, and we don't have any food. We'll just have to start wandering around and looking for the road. We can't possibly be that far away, Val suggested optimistically. What a pain. Both of us are tired, and I really don't feel like marching through the woods all night, I complained. But Valorie didn't seem to be very interested. So we just began to walk. We walked and walked and walked. I was really getting tired and hungry. For some reason, I felt hungrier than I've ever felt in my whole life, despite me having eaten a full hearty meal just before we got on the wagon. It was certainly odd, as there was no way that I could possibly feel this hungry. My vision began to blur a little, but my eyes were strangely enough completely fixated on Valorie. I noticed that Val's typically very upright posture had turned hunched, and she began to heavily breathe. I began to stumble a bit closer, about to reach my hand out to her, when she suddenly turned her head towards me with incredible speed that made me flinch out of surprise. Val? Are you alright? I asked her, slightly unnerved. Ed, I'm going to starve, she whispered, staring directly into my soul. What? No, you're not. We just ate before we left, I responded, slowly backing away from her. Oh, right, it's just I feel so absurdly hungry. I can't explain why, she mumbled nervously while gazing at me and beginning to drool a bit. Something was deeply wrong here. Val then lunged at me like a rabid animal, and I began running for my life. The only thing I could see from behind me was the horrifying glow of her eyes that glared at me hungrily. Even though I darted through the dead of night like there was no tomorrow, Val tirelessly kept up with me, running faster than I've ever seen her before. Ed, come back. I promise it won't hurt. I just want to take a bite out of your flesh. Oh God, I'm so hungry, she snarled, tumbling in my direction like a broken marionette. Unfortunately, I tripped on a root of a tree, landing on my back, and soon found Valorie looming over me with an unnaturally wide, sadistic grin on her face. I felt her teeth piercing into my forearm, but managed to yank my limb out of her jaw before she could actually bite off a chunk of my flesh. Without hesitation, I got up on my feet again and continued trying to escape her, when I heard a voice calling my name from the direction I was running in. It was Val's voice. Immediately, I began to grow hopeful that the being that had just attempted to eat me wasn't my sister at all, and that the real Val could possibly be waiting for me somewhere else. I followed the voice and came face to face with a familiar-looking tiefling woman with scarlet skin and curly black hair, wearing a wine-red dress with golden detailing. At first, I was overjoyed, but then I turned around to see the person that had tried to eat me, yet again, having caught up to me. I ran towards the familiar figure, who proceeded to warmly embrace me. While in her arms, I looked over my shoulder again, and saw that the Valorie that was chasing me had stopped. Her eyes were no longer glowing, and there was a mortified expression on her face. I looked back at the woman I was hugging and saw that she no longer looked like Val at all. Instead, I was embracing a tall, lanky, fuzzy, blurry creature with a massive pair of antlers protruding from its skull. It had razor-sharp teeth, hollow white eyes, and no matter how closely I looked at it, I couldn't make out all of its details. It was ferociously glitching and twitching, and every time it moved, a ghostly echo of itself appeared, standing statically in the last position it was just in. Hastily, I removed myself from the grasp of the monster, just to see it joyfully smiling at me. Your sister was right. You really are a sweetheart, Eddie. The creature spoke in a distorted feminine voice. You immediately came crying to me when you thought your sister was replaced with a monster. But she was just under a charm spell, And I was the real monster all along. You know, I like to be entertained before I get my food. But you kinda snapped out of the spell I was trying to cast on you. So now it's your turn, you tender little cinnamon roll. After the creature had said that, my hunger was greater than ever before, and I lost all semblance of self-control, leaping towards my sister, trying to scratch and bite at her. Everything in my mind was suggesting to me that it was the best course of action to just take a bite out of her body in order to satiate this unbearably immense hunger I was feeling. But before I could kill and eat her, Val casted Mage Hand. The magical hand gripped tightly around me, preventing me from getting to her. She then showed her middle finger to the monster and darted off with the hand and, by proxy, me, floating closely behind her. The creature simply began to clap slowly, glaring at us with its dead eyes, not even making an attempt at pursuing us. You two are fun. Hopefully I'll meet you again sometime soon. And when that day comes, I'll delightfully watch you rip each other apart. It howled, steadily disappearing into the darkness of the woods. Right behind it, I could see several more pairs of eyes, similar to its, collectively staring at us. Real quickly, the next section contains spoilers as to what this monster is and how to defeat it. So if you're a Dungeons & Dragons player and you want to encounter this in your campaign, consider sharing this video with your DM. Alright, thank you. The Wendigo. Wendigos are vengeful, corpse-like nature spirits with a particularly gruesome hunting method. A Wendigo is characterized by its sickeningly thin, tall, bony proportions, its hollow eyes, and a set of antlers protruding from its skull. They have extremely long, slender fingers that end in sharp claws, and large feet with only a single toe. Many of them are covered in branches, roots, and leaves, and have bright pupils that glow in the dark. When fighting a Wendigo, you soon realize that they possess an innate ability to confuse someone by producing holographic copies of themselves that swirl around them when they move. One of their more terrifying abilities is to use primal magic in order to influence the thoughts of their victims, most often compelling them to attack and eat their own traveling companions, regardless of if this makes them a cannibal. This is because Wendigos tend to get bored and like to watch its prey kill each other before eating them. However, when on the run from a Wendigo, it will only pursue its victim until the victim leaves its habitat, meaning that escaping them is very much possible. Here's the stat block for the Wendigo. You can pause it or screenshot it if you want to read it or use it in your game. Yeah, that was it for today's D&D creature feature. I hope y'all have fun with the Wendigo. It's such an iconic monster from folklore that it honestly feels like a crime that it isn't in D&D already. But hey, that's what homebrew is for. There's going to be 1 or 2 more videos before Hallows Eve, depending on how much free time I have. But those videos, or that video, that's going to be awesome. So stay tuned for that and don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay spoopy, everyone.